I'm just gonna jump straight into the books that I'm reading this month, or the one that I'm reading currently. I was gonna wait until this vlog to start it, but then I didn't feel like filming and I really wanted to read the book. So I'm reading I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. Usually I'll just randomly choose which book I read, but this one I've been looking forward to a lot. It's the only Alice Oseman novel I haven't read because it just came out in the US. So yes, I picked it up. I am already like 2/3 of the way through. It's not my favorite of her books, but I am still very much enjoying it. It's fun. I like it. I will say in her other books, I can relate more with the main characters. This book has a lot to do, this book is essentially about this girl named Angel, who is a really big fan of the boy band, The Ark. And a lot of her like being in the like fandom and the fan culture, as well as making internet friends and all that jazz. And then it follows Jimmy, the main, or the lead singer, I think, of the band, and he has severe anxiety, and it's him trying to navigate being himself while also being in the spotlight, and he's not wanting to present himself as something he isn't. So yeah, the two of them kind of meet. In the synopsis, it makes it seem like they're like intensely than they are actually in the book, but essentially it follows them leading up to a performance that the Ark is doing in London. It's him leading up to the performance, her visiting London, and you know, meeting these new people, and it's kind of a shit show of a week for both of them. So it's interesting. It has a lot to do with like parasocial relationships, and I don't know if that's something I can really relate to. I'm certainly not one of those people who gets desperately in love with a fandom. I'm a relaxed fan. I can hyperfixate, but usually not on real people. And I think this has a common assumed relationships have an effect on both the person who has that relationship as well as the person who they're looking up to. And I find it very interesting. I like looking into, we're looking at this point into like why Angel has such a hyperfixation on the boy band, and obviously it has to do with her mental health and not feeling happy in her own life. So I appreciate that conversation. Prior to this, it was less of that and more of just like her obsession with the boy band, which made it a little hard to relate because she was so in love with them, and that's just not something that I do. I can very much talk about some things for hours, but real people, it's always seemed very strange to me. Delving into the mental health aspect of that, I will say I appreciate Jimmy a lot more as a main character. He is such a little sweet little, what is it? Cinnamon roll? That's it. Such a sweet little cinnamon roll. He's like, God, he's so anxious all the time about everything, and I feel that. It seems like he really just wants to make people happy, but he also wants to be himself, and he doesn't know how to do the two at the same time, especially in a position of like the spotlight and fame. And it's interesting to see him navigate through that. I like his bandmates. Their relationship scandal, maybe, possibly, I don't know. I think it's going that direction, like with a relationship, though his bandmates, especially the one, have some issues as well. So I mean, if you want to look into triggers and stuff, I'm not sure how far she's Alice Oseman is going to delve into it, but one of the band members definitely has specifically alcohol. So yeah. But as of right now, I am really enjoying it. I'm flying through it really fast. I've gone through the first 230 pages in 2 days, which is quick for me. I don't read fast. So hopefully I'll have it finished by the end of the weekend. I'm gonna read some more of it tonight, definitely pick it back up tomorrow. I am going to the holiday market tomorrow, and so hopefully I'll find like some Christmas presents and just some small business. So yeah. And I'll take my camera, maybe I'll get some footage there. But yes, I don't have any specific reading plans this month. I've been, in October I read all like spooky books, and I definitely still am in the mood for the autumnal vibe, maybe some horror. I'm getting into horror a lot and I want to keep reading it. But this is a nice break. No murder, just, well, somebody did throw a brick at somebody, so that could have been murder. But yeah, for the most part, this is a quick, fun read. I don't think it's gonna get too, you know, intense with the conversations it has. Alice Oseman, for the most part, I think she does a good job of having like legitimate conversations in her books without making it really heavy. The only time where I would say did make it heavy was Solitaire, and that was her debut. If anyone's read Solitaire, you know. Tori's mind is a very dark place, but yeah, for the most part, Alice Oseman, she kind of does a good job balancing the two. So yeah, this is a nice break in between all of that, or break from all of that, and then we'll see. I might not pick up another horror. Usually I just pick up a random book. I literally use a random number generator, and that's how I decide, so we'll just have to wait and see, but I should be finished with this in the next few days. So I don't have any specific plans for tonight. It's later in the evening on Saturday. I've done all the things that I need to do. I probably won't be leaving the house again, so yeah, I'll just sit around, read, watch YouTube, update if I want. I did go to the bookstore today. Bookstore? No, I did not. I went to Goodwill. But I found some books. I got, speaking of horror, I don't think these really fall into that category. They're more thrillers. This Sharp Objects, it looks like it's about a reporter going back to her hometown interesting. She must unravel the psychological puzzle of her own past if she wants to get the story and survive this homecoming. I think this is the one that I hear the most good things about. But yeah, I mean, I find her books interesting. I know what happens in Gone Girl. I haven't seen the movie, but I know what happens in Gone Girl. I don't have any interest in picking it up. But these two, I don't know as much about. The main character was 7 when her mother and 2 sisters were murdered in a Satan sacrifice. She survived and testified against her brother, implementing him as the killer. Okay. Then 25 years later, a group called the Kill Club, which is obsessed with this crime, track the main character Libby down to discover proof that her brother Ben should be set free. Libby hopes to profit off of the tragedy. As Libby's search takes her from shabby Missouri strip clubs to abandoned Oklahoma tourist towns, the unimaginable truth emerges, and Libby finds herself right back where she started, on the run from a killer. Dang. So I'm guessing her brother didn't commit that murder. And then lastly, on a completely different note, I did pick up Betrayed by Emily Henry. I think everybody knows what this is about. It's like 2 authors who went to college together, I think. One writes romance, one writes literary fiction. They both go to this beach house or whatever on a trip because they both have writer's block, and while they're there they meet and decide to switch genres, and it's a romance between them, and everyone loves this book. I am not a big fan of romance. I haven't heard anything about this one being like super steamy. I hope it's not, because that makes me uncomfortable, but since everyone loves it, I decided to pick it up. It was $1.20, it was $1.50. The prices went up. So for $1.50, I will read some mildly uncomfortable sex scenes, if those are in here. But yeah, these are the books. This one's backwards, but these are the books that I picked up. That is the only other update I have. I need to put these on the shelves, but yes, I will stop talking. I'll give this one some attention, and I will see you in my next clip. Bye. Hello, welcome. I finished I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. If you hear that crinkling noise in the background, that is, she likes the crinkly toys. So I finished this yesterday. So I gave it 4 stars. I like it. I do. I like anything Alice Oseman writes. It's a guilty pleasure. Like, I acknowledge how freaking messy, so messy this stuff is. Like, Loveless was the same way, but it always gives me, like, simultaneously very happy and very sad feelings, even though I couldn't tell you why. Like, was everything resolved? No. Was everything, like, light and fluffy? No. But, like, was it so sad that I should be sobbing? No. Not that I sobbed. Don't worry. I haven't cried in years. I wasn't going to start now. So, yes. I did very much enjoy this. Even though I acknowledge it's not perfect. And there are aspects of it that I'm personally not a fan of. So, I will say, I don't know much about parasocial relationships. Quite honestly, I don't know the definition of parasocial relationships. I assume it's when you feel connected to someone you don't actually know who is, like, in a position of fame. I don't know if that's an accurate definition. That's just how I've always assumed it was. That's clearly what this is about, and how it's toxic, or can be toxic, for both sides of the relationship, if you can call it that. Obviously there's a situation with the main character where she's kind of hyperfixating on these boy bands, and seeing, like, how happy they are, and how, you know, her life dulls in comparison, and it's almost like an excuse to avoid her own feelings, and her own problems. Whereas, you know, you see the side of Fame where it has its issues outside of the parasocial relationships, but you also see the main character really just wanting people to be happy, because that's how they view their role as a celebrity, to be this happy figure to others, and feeling like they're lying by kind of not showing people the truer side of themselves, the less shiny, happy side of themselves. And I get that. But this was also a fun read. Like, I don't know how to explain it, because there's a lot of stuff in here where I'm like, damn, that's really sad. And most of that stuff doesn't get resolved. I would really love, like, a follow-up story to this, where we see some of the storylines and stuff to get resolved, but we don't see that. Certain things are implied, and so I believe the things will work out. I will say, Alice Oseman sure knows how to write a messy novel. Like, I swear. They're all like this. I mean, Radio Silence I feel like is the least worst, but it's still pretty messy. But I love it. Like, it's great. I like the conversations that it had. I would say maybe I don't love it as much as her other books, or as much as other people enjoy this one, because I didn't relate as much to the conversation. It's specifically in how it dealt with real people. I understand using different vices, and you see other characters do this, where they all have their issues, essentially a lot of the same issues, but they use different things to cover it up. You see the parasocial relationship, you see one character who's an alcoholic, one who's, like, really obsessive over certain details. There's an implication that he may be OCD, or just a perfectionist to the extent that it's unhealthy. I don't know if those two would really be the same. I don't want to use them interchangeably, so he's not diagnosed with anything, but that's kind of like the implication. So it's really about people using other aspects of their lives, or just different vices to kind of ignore their mental health and fixing the problems, and kind of learning that that isn't healthy, and that in order to, you know, become happy with yourself, you have to face the problem head on. And so I enjoy that conversation. I do think that that was handled well, though it was not resolved. You kind of got to the point where it was like, yeah, okay, I acknowledge I have an issue. Now is the time to take steps to fix that issue. And that's when the story really ends. You don't see a resolution, and I think maybe I don't love that part of it. I would like more, but I would also like more of the relationships in this. You didn't see too much of one of the friendships, which is really supposed to be the sole point of one of the characters, or sole outcome with one of the characters. You didn't see much of the romantic relationships either, which I would have loved. I would have loved to see Angel explore her sexuality, because I do believe she's aromantic, or at least based on some of the stuff that she says, that's the vibe that I get. So I would have liked maybe more exploration there. This felt a little, compared to her other books, I'd say it's more surface level with the characters. I love Jimmy. He's great. I relate to all his anxiousness. But other than that, we didn't get in deep with the side characters, I feel like, as I feel like we usually do with an Alice Oseman novel. Not that she couldn't do that with them. I just think that maybe the book should have had more focus on them. It should have played out differently, even longer. I don't know. I don't know what should have changed, but I would have liked to, you know, explore them more. And the short story at the end really helped with that, by the way. There's a short story at the end of the US edition. I don't know if it's in the UK edition, but it's called Ghosted, and it alternates between Lister and Rowan's perspectives. So there's that. You guys can't see Hickory right now. Yeah, you can. This is Gus the avocado. This is Hickory. He really wants that avocado. I will say, it's not light and fluffy. I say it's a quick, fun read. It's not light and fluffy. There are trigger warnings, content warnings that I would insist that you look up. Because as much as I love all the characters and how I do find reading her books to be fun, the characters' mindsets aren't always the nicest. A lot of times they can be self-deprecating, self-isolating. So be aware of that. And then in addition, there are other content warnings and trigger warnings. So I would just look those up. I would also like to point out that I don't know how the Muslim rep is in this. I've heard like comments previously. I can't quote it exactly because I don't know. I didn't save it, but I've heard comments that maybe it isn't the best. I can't speak to that, obviously, but I can say that Alice Oseman is not on Voices in that regard. So be aware of that when going into this. As well, because the main character, Angel, or one of the main characters, Angel, is Muslim. And it's mentioned, it's not really delved into much, but I would like to point that out. But irregardless, I enjoyed the novel. It is not perfect. It is a 4-star. But I finished that. I did pick up another book already. I picked up Hold Still by Nina LaCour. This was just a random one that popped up on my spreadsheet, and I'm already halfway through because it's a really short book. Damn, if there were trigger warnings for the last book, there are certainly ones for this, because the main character's best friend, right before the story begins, commits suicide. And there's some graphic flashbacks that occur in this, and I was not expecting that. I love him. So yeah, it's sad. This book is really rough. It has a lot to do with the main character. I mean, it's really just about her grief and the guilt that she feels for not having noticed, not having thought things were as serious as they were. All very sad. I do believe that there is some sort of relationship that evolves in the story as well. We haven't gotten there. She's finally, you know, speaking to other people, being willing to be happy, but then feeling guilty to be happy, since her friend wasn't. So it's all very sad. I would say this is a good book so far. Like I said, I'm already halfway through, so we'll see where it goes. I like the writing. It's not like anything super awesome, but it is also Nina Lepore's debut, and I'm glad that I'm enjoying this because I have like almost all of her books. And this is my first time actually reading one, so it's good that I like it. I'm going to continue with this. I feel like I'll just update when I finish, since it's such a short book. I don't want to go over all of my feelings. But very sad, very hard-hitting, and there's self-isolation in this one as well, which I definitely relate to. So yeah, it is good so far, but it might be a rough one for me. So my ferret is now like attacking a water bottle, so I'll be right back. So yes, I am reading that, like I said, halfway through. I'm going to go back to reading that now, and then I will update when I'm finished. Hopefully it shouldn't take me very long at all, because I've already gotten halfway through and I just started it today, so we'll see. Bye. Hi, welcome back. I have a bit of a haul and some updates. Let's do the haul first. I meant to bring my camera when I went and did the thingamajigs, but I forgot. First and foremost, I went to Target. I just needed deodorant. I got the deodorant. Bark, bark. Excuse you. Okay, now that they're finished, hopefully. Obviously I had to go by the book section, and I saw the Heartstopper coloring book. I didn't know it was out. I didn't know, because I was like, oh, you don't need that. So yeah, clearly I needed it, because I got it. It is a bunch of just drawings directly from the comic book, graphic novel, as well as ones from like short stories and just random doodles that Alice Oseman has done, and you can color them in, and it's so cute. I love it. Like, look at that crap. They're so happy. I love it. And so logically, because of that, I had to get some skin tone crayons, because I have lots of markers and regular crayons and colored pencils, but not skin tone specific. Then while I was out, I just picked up some other random stuff. I went to Michael's because I switched pens that I was using for the book that I'm reading now, because I'm reading a new book. Here's a hint. It's this color. It's kind of like a light orange. That pencil or pen is dying, so I had to get a new one. I also have to get a new one of this yellow color, because that's also no longer working. So yeah, I replaced these, and then because I have no self-control, I found two other colors that I wanted. A coral kind of orange, and then like this mustard yellow. So I'm happy with those purchases. Did I need them? Technically not, but am I gonna use them? Absolutely. So those are added to the collection. Then I went by, I knew I was gonna do this, but I completely forgot to bring my camera. I may insert a photo, but I went to this bookstore that I had no idea existed until I looked up bookstores near me. And I found out there's one really close to where I work. I'm off work today, so why did I do that? I don't know. But there's one really close to where I work called Sunrise Books, and I went and visited. I got a couple books, but they had the sweetest store cat that I have ever seen. I love her. Her name is Poe. She's 20 years old, and she demands to be pet at all times. She got in my mom's lap. It was so freaking cute. If I have a picture, she's like this gray tabby. I love her. I love her. I would be her best friend if she would let me. But anyways, I got a couple of books while I was there. Because I can't just go into an independent bookstore and not get anything. But then I got a book for myself. I was gonna buy one full price, but then I noticed they have like a scratch and dent section, and this was still kind of expensive for being 40% off, so I got Nur by Nnedi Okorafor. This is like Afrofuturism, I believe, because this is about a woman who she was initially born with some sort of deformity, and then even beyond that, she had a car accident later in her life that caused a lot of her body to be replaced with machinery, so almost like a cyborg in a sense. And so people view her as kind of like this unnatural being, less than human. And so she's ostracized by that. Then something goes wrong and she ends up on the run with another man named DNA, and they're running across essentially northern Nigeria. And obviously technology plays a big part in this, so it seems like they're essentially being recorded, so like every step that they make is being followed by the media. So it sounds really interesting. I have Binti by Nnedi Okorafor too, and that tends to be what they do. They create these really interesting technologically advanced societies to discuss a variety of issues. This one, it seems like a lot of what they're discussing is disability, but obviously race, color, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, those are themes within Nnedi Okorafor's work as well. So yeah, this one was on sale because it's got a tiny little dent in the back, but I picked it up because it does look interesting, and I want to look into a lot of Nnedi Okorafor's work. Like I said, I have the first book in the Binti trilogy, I guess. They're really short. They're actually novellas. So I picked that up while I was there, and I gave lots of cuddles to the store cat, Poe. But as far as my reading update goes, I did finish Hold Still by Nina LaCour. I gave this 4 stars. I'm actually pretty surprised that it was as good as it was. It was written in 2009, so I honestly expected a lot of the stuff to be dated, but there wasn't anything that I could see that was like crazy dated. I mean, like, one of the characters, she kind of had the not like other girls vibes. The technology was outdated, obviously. They had like landlines, and instead of playing music on your phone, they had like an actual stereo system that they used. That was dated, but for the most part, the language and stuff like that wasn't too crazy. I think that this is a really good portrayal of grief, especially considering it deals with suicide. I would say if you're going to read this, absolutely look up the trigger warnings, but I can tell you right now that there's a lot of depictions of self-harm. To me, it was pretty graphic. I wasn't expecting it to so bluntly state certain things, but it did. And so I would be aware of that before going into it. It was pretty rough to read about, because you do see like journal entries from the girl who took her own life, and how she was feeling at the end. It's very sad. But this is, I think, a really good portrayal of grief, and it's very raw, and you see it throughout not only the main character's life, but how it affects other characters as well. Like her best friend's family, the guy she had a crush on, things like that. And it's really about her working through and accepting what happened and her role in that, because she does feel very guilty. So it is a tough read, I will say that. You're very much in the main character's head a lot of the time, but I think Nina LaCour did a very good job with this. And this is her debut, which, very congrats, you did a good debut. So I gave this 4 stars. I can't get the full 5. Maybe I was a little disappointed because I thought this was going to be female. I thought all of Nina LaCour's books were. This was not. There is a lesbian side character, I guess, too, because you get to know a little bit about her girlfriend. But, so yes, there are women loving women in the story, but I was under the impression that all of Nina LaCour's books were queer. I didn't realize they weren't. But other than that, I mean, since so much of the story is within the main character's head, you don't really get to know the side characters as much as I would have liked to, but I see why that wasn't done. This is such a short book, and it really isn't about the side characters. It's about the main character and her turmoil after the death of her best friend. So that's kind of my only gripe with it, but alas, it was still a very good novel and depiction of grief, in my opinion. So I'll definitely be picking up other Nina LaCour books. I'm glad I liked it because I own 3 other books by her. I did like the love interest in this. I mean, he said something at the beginning where I was like, oh, hell no. But he kind of realized he shouldn't have said that, and apologized. But I feel like, especially in 2009, you got a lot more of the toxic men in stories, but this guy, he's just like a freaking cinnamon roll. Like, he's so happy and nice. So yeah, I appreciated that. Good change of pace. He was just like, I support everything. So that was nice. But the book I started reading after that was Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie. I am currently 105 pages into this. This is a story about Ophelia. It's the end of her senior year, leading up to prom. She always has like crushes on different boys, but then all of a sudden she starts to have feelings for a girl, and it's kind of her working through that and questioning her sexuality. And this is really fun so far. Lots of like fun side characters. I love the friendships and the dynamics that she has with these characters. I like a lot of just the main character's voice quite a bit. She obviously has a crush on this one girl. It's adorable. It's so awkward, but it's sweet. So I'm really liking it. I'm kind of sad because there's everybody. It's not that like people in her life aren't supportive. It's they have this image of her where she is straight. And every time they mention something like that, oh, do you like a boy? Oh, well, one day when you have a husband and stuff like that, it really gets to her now that she's questioning her sexuality, and it makes me sad. I don't know why, because it's obviously not like a direct insult, but I'm just like, I feel for her when people say that. And she's going through this emotion where she feels like she's lying because people assume that about her, and obviously that's not the truth. You don't have to keep everyone up to date about you questioning your identity, but I can definitely relate to that. It's just tugging at my heartstrings a little bit, even though this is like a really sweet book so far, like really not a heavy topic, not in comparison to Hold Still. I mean, I'm only 100 pages into it, but so far it's a pretty quick, lighter read. So we'll see. I know that according to the synopsis, like her lies start to catch up with her and stuff like that. But yes, I'm currently reading this one. I really like it. I love the little quirks that each character has. Like, she has a rose garden. Her other friend, obsessed with fashion and history and stuff like that. It's so cute. I love all the characters. So I'm going to continue reading this. Most likely update when I'm finished, or maybe when I've reached page 200, whichever I feel like doing. But yes, this is what I'm currently reading, and I'm having a great time. So I believe that is all for this update. I'm going to start on this coloring book now, and I'll definitely read more of Ophelia After All later today and tomorrow, because I am off work today and tomorrow. I go back in on Saturday. But yes, I will update in a bit, like I said, either page 200 or when I'm finished. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I will update later. Goodbye. Hello, I'm 213 pages into Ophelia After All. I love this book so much.
I love Ophelia. She's just such a wonderful main character. So relatable. She's going through this time in her life, obviously she's questioning, and just so many like little comments here and there from her peers, they get to her like, oh, you're gonna have a husband one day, oh, I can't believe he accused you of being gay, as if that was an insult. All those little things, they come up, and Ophelia has this sense like if she changes a portion of herself, then people will be disappointed because she didn't live up to their expectations. Not necessarily that these people are homophobic, because I don't believe any of these characters would be. I think they'd be very accepting. But she feels like she's created an image, even unintentionally, and undoing that will somehow make people look at her differently. And man, does that crap hurt. So yes, I love Ophelia. She is such a relatable character. I love all these side characters. They're wonderful. I want Ophelia to just be happy. Can she be happy by the end of this book? I mean, like, yeah, I think she will be. I'm very much loving this. I love all the side characters. I kind of want to cry because my heart is broken too, Ophelia, don't worry. We're learning more about other of the side characters. I kind of looked ahead in this chapter, and now I have to read it even though it's nighttime. And like learning parts of their identity that they maybe weren't so open about, or at least we didn't know about previously. So I'm happy to get to know them a lot more. I still just love the banter between the friend groups in here, but I'm excited to continue. I just truly hope Ophelia is living her best life, happy as can be by the end of this book. She better. I don't foresee it going in a different direction, but like, I'm gonna be so happy when she's living her best life. Yeah, anyways, I just wanted to update that because I did reach the 200-page mark, and the parallels between her and me were just too much. So yes, that's it. I'm still really loving it. Raquel Marie is coming out with a new book next year that I didn't know about until recently, and I will 100% be picking it up. Like, I have to. It's like rivals to lovers. Oh, hello. Oh, there's an asexual character in this book, by the way. I love him. Like, I just found out that he's asexual, but I love him. He barely speaks, but it's fine. I love him. I will 100% be picking up the next book that Raquel comes out with because I'm loving this. I imagine it's, I don't think it's going to disappoint. I don't think the last 100 pages will go downhill. I could be wrong. I shouldn't hype myself up too much, but right now I'm really loving it, and I anticipate that I'm going to keep doing so. But I will go ahead, read this chapter, take off the sweatshirt because I'm freaking hot, and then I'm probably gonna go to bed because it is 11 p.m. and I have to work tomorrow. So, bye.
Hello. I am here to update that I finished Ophelia After All. My feelings have not changed. I loved it. It's 5 out of 5 stars. Would absolutely recommend. I think this book was fantastic. And I will 100% be picking up everything Raquel Marie writes. But I feel like I don't have much to add when it comes to this book. Like, do I need to gush more? I found Ophelia to be such a relatable character. I love her. I loved her story of, you know, questioning herself and discovering herself. And I think it's a fantastic story for people who are going through similar situations to read. It's just such wonderful characters who are all so dramatic. I mean, they're high schoolers, so I admit it makes sense that I was never this dramatic, but I also I also didn't have any friends, so like, what am I gonna do? But I love them all. They're so supportive and lovely, and I mentioned how the asexual character was introduced, and like, I love him. I love him. He's fantastic. He's my favorite. I mean, I just love all of them, and the conversations that this had regarding the expectations we set for ourselves, and obviously conversations regarding sexuality and diaspora and all that jazz. And here, I think it did a fantastic job. A great narrator, just great writing. I loved all the little references to Shakespeare. I love the banter between the friends. Their relationship dynamics are fantastic. Not gonna lie. So yes, I absolutely love this book, and it is time for me to choose a new book to read now, which I won't start today. I'm gonna give myself some time to feel the feelings about this one. Yeah, I'm going to get my laptop and figure out what I'm gonna read next, but I'm not gonna make you sit through that, so I'll be right back. Okay, we're here with the light of the laptop on my face, as if I wasn't hell enough. If you don't know, I have an Excel spreadsheet where I just enter in every book I own and haven't read yet, and then since I'm the most indecisive person to have ever existed, I do a random number generator to figure out what I want to read. Okay, let's see what that one is. Oh. No. It's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It's available as an audiobook. I'll borrow it. But that means I have to choose another one as well for my physical read. So let's see what that's going to be. So the audiobook, Doctor Strange and Mr. Norrell, it's massive. I wasn't joking. This looks bigger than it is. I mean, it's pretty big. When I look at it, like, from Goodreads, it says it's over 1,000 pages, but it's actually 846. So, not crazy. And it has illustrations, but it also has footnotes. So that's how you know this shit be dense. This is about magicians. I don't know. Here's the thing. I have the audiobook now, but I may actually try and read this physically. Yeah, it's an epic tale of 19th century England and two very different magicians who, as teacher and pupil, and then as rivals, emerged to change its history. In the year 1806, in the throes of the Napoleonic Wars, most people believe magic is to be dead in England, until the reclusive Mr. Norrell of Hertford Abbey reveals his powers and becomes a celebrity overnight. Soon another practicing magician emerges, the young, handsome, and daring Jonathan Strange. He becomes Norrell's student, and the two join forces in the war against France. But as Strange is increasingly drawn to the wildest, most perilous forms of magic, he risks sacrificing not only his partnership with Norrell, but everything else that he holds dear. Yeah, okay, cool. I mean, I read the synopsis before I bought it, but it seemed really interesting. That's why I was willing to pick up something so huge. Plus, I think everyone loves this book. I'm honestly going to attempt to read the physical book, but if I feel like it's too dense for like my purposes of just being able to pick it up and read a couple pages at a time, then I'll put it down and pick up and just do the audiobook and then pick up the other book, which probably isn't the best alternative, but it's at least slightly shorter. It's The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. It's also an adult fantasy in Russia. That's about all I can tell you, to be honest. But a lot of people like it. So, yeah. I think this will be on the back burner, like I said, in case this, I feel like I have to put more thought to this than I want. Then I'll pick this up instead and just do the audiobook for that. But for right now, I'm actually going to set this aside, keep it as a backup, and Jonathan Strange and Dr. Norrell, or Mr. Norrell, I always want to say doctor, but Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell will be my main priority. I mean, with this size of a book, it's gotta be. So yeah, an interesting change of pace. I mean, I've read a lot of contemporaries recently, 3 back-to-back contemporaries that were all pretty good. So why not pick up a dense adult fantasy? Because, of course. We'll see how it goes. It's a change of pace. Maybe we needed that. I will start that probably tomorrow. I do have quite a bit of things to do tomorrow on volunteering. We'll just see how much I get read, but I will at least try to start Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell tomorrow. And I'll update when I make some progress. It's a pretty long book, so I might do it like every 200 pages or so. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Hello. I went to a Christmas festival parade today. So I wore my Christmas favorite sweatshirt because I had to. Looks just like Juniper. We stan. I wanted to update on Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. For the most part, I've been reading this physically at work because it's dense, but I have found that it's intriguing enough to hold my attention when I have nothing else to do. I've been reading it mostly physically. I did listen to a little bit of the audiobook today, and I'm going to listen to the rest of the chapter that I'm on audio, just because I feel like when I'm at home or in different environments, I get distracted from the story since it's so freaking dense. But I'm light about updating. I'm actually 320 pages in right now. I noticed that this book is actually divided up into 3 acts. I'm quite a bit past the beginning of the second act, but I think I'm gonna update at the end of the second act again. That way it'll be like a good check-in, like sort of one for the first act, one for the second act, and then I'll have the third act finished as well as the entire book finished, and I can update it then as well. Like I said, this book is dense. I don't know if I like it. I'm gonna be honest, like I couldn't genuinely tell you whether I like or don't like it because I have no idea. I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of stuff that will, continue to happen, where I won't know how I feel until it all ties together. I will say, this book does not need to be so freaking dense. Why? It's weird because this book was written in 2004. The way that the author is writing is as if this were written in 1800 when it's set, which is not something I'm used to. Usually people just write things in a more modern fashion, even if it is in a historical setting. So that's strange. What isn't strange about the story? Let's be honest. Jonathan Strange, for example, didn't even show up until after 100 pages in, and then he didn't start like actually doing anything of importance until Act 2. Like maybe the very beginning of or end of Act 1, but like that was a good 200 pages into the book. He's one of the lead characters, obviously. So yeah, that was different. I don't know what I thought this book was going into it. I'm not sure I had solid expectations, but I didn't think it would be this, which is once again a dense, really like prestigious but like also comedic story about, yes, magicians, but also fairies, which, okay, I don't know. It's something where I wouldn't be interested if I didn't understand like the concept of folklore in England, where fairies really were something that people believed in for a long time, because the magic in this world is tied back in some ways to the Fae people. So we have one in the story. He doesn't have a name, but he's there and he's messing with people. It reminds me a lot of like early British literature. I know in like Arthurian romances, the Fae people or the other world will be mentioned. I didn't go too deep into that when I studied British literature. I mean, it was just a college class, and I didn't continue on with an English degree, so I took one class on it, but I am at least aware of those themes in British history and British literature, so that makes a little more sense when I'm reading this now. Had I not been aware of that, I would be so freaking confused. Be like, what do you mean these random fairy people? What's going on? But yeah, the magic has to do with them in some ways. For the first 200 pages, we essentially followed Mr. Norrell, who is this really selfish, self-righteous, conceited old man who feels like he has mastered magic, and he is the only one, and he wants to keep it to himself because his way is the right way and the only right way. He's something. This book, you'd have to read it to understand why I say it's like a comedy in a way, because everyone's aware of the fact that this man is not all that he says he is. Like, yeah, you can do magic, but you're really not a great person. But he is so blind to other people
kind of manipulating him and using his desire to gain notoriety against him. So it's interesting. He's really easily manipulated, and like I said, very, very conceited. And then Jonathan Strange, the second act is really about him. It's right now we're getting more into the Napoleonic War aspect of the story, because Jonathan, he's younger, he's more active, more willing to take risk with his magic, so he's becoming more involved with the Napoleonic War. So he's very different. I'd say he's more of like the well-intended of the two. I feel like we haven't gotten too much into him. But yeah, like I said, he's more, his intentions are a lot better than Mr. Norrell's. They clash so much, and Mr. Norrell is sort of his teacher, but Jonathan Strange, it seems, is more or less teaching himself. But Mr. Norrell, he's, when he was keeping all these books, when he was trying to keep magic to himself, he obtained all the magic books and, like, kept them away from the rest of society. So realistically, Jonathan Strange can't access all the material to teach himself unless he is with Mr. Norrell and using his books that have all the magic stuff in them. The book really does, like, at times I feel like it makes fun of itself. So I don't know what the purpose of the story is right now. If it's supposed to be a comedy, if there's another, like, moral that's supposed to be there. Hickory, they like the little crinkly toys, and so they have a crinkly tunnel in there, and of course right now he decided to get in his tunnel. I feel like I don't have cohesive thoughts because, like I said, I'm not sure I actually like it, but I don't dislike it. It's just like, whoa. Like I said, dense. Like, when I'm at home, I'm going to have to listen to the audiobook, otherwise I'm not going to do anything. But yeah, I don't know, maybe there will be more action. It's kind of funny because it's a book about magicians, but we don't see a lot of their magic in it. We don't understand how it works. I don't think that we're going to. I think it's more about them. And then you have the underlying plot where this fairy guy has come in to play. Because Mr. Norrell, though he likes to teach that you don't need fairies and blah 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 to get your magic, he did in fact make a deal with one, and so it's like slowly impeding into other people's lives in the community, which is, it's a completely, like, a whole new freaking storyline that's like weirdly weaving itself into everyone else's lives, which is the most interesting part of the story in my opinion. But alas, I have a good 500 pages left of this book, so lots of things can happen. I'm not even halfway through. We'll see my opinion. I mean, the third act of the story, they're all named after people. The first act is Mr. Norrell, the second is Jonathan Strange, and then the third act is John Usglass, I think. I don't even know who that is. He has not been mentioned. I don't know what he is, what he does. But apparently the third act is about him, so yeah, we'll see what that's all about, but I will continue to read this and then update it at the beginning of Act 3. I think it's close to 9 o'clock, so there's not much else I can do today, but I'll at least finish this chapter. That will be my night. Bye. hello. I didn't update like I said I was going to. I actually got to Act 3 on Thanksgiving. So it was the middle of a ride to family houses, so I couldn't exactly stop in the middle of a vehicle. I was a passenger, but I'm not gonna film in front of my family like that. That seems really, really awkward. So I meant to update after I got home, but then I didn't do that, and I finished the book. I will say, part of that was because it picked up a lot around Act 3. I mean, I certainly didn't immediately finish it. Like, it still took me until the next Wednesday to finish it. So yeah, it didn't pick up that much, don't worry. This didn't suddenly become fast-paced, but it definitely, like, something changed. The stakes were higher. I was more invested. So yeah, I finished it. I did not want to bring this book into the next month. I was like, no, we will finish it before the month ends, and I will start afresh with new books in the new month. And that's what I did. I made sure I finished this before the end of the month. And I gave it 3 stars. I don't dislike it. I don't really, like, love it or anything. It's okay. I think that this book has a niche that I can see sort of. Like, it appeals to me in some ways, but then other ways not so much, which is why I think I might like Piranesi, because which is Susanna Clarke's second book. This is extremely long-winded. As you can tell, it's 850 pages, and I'm not sure it really needed to be. So Piranesi is much shorter, and I think maybe, given its length, I may be more inclined to enjoy it, because, I mean, I can get with the long-winded descriptions, kind of like whimsical descriptions of things, but for 850 pages, I'm not sure I like it as much. But for like 300, yeah, I could do that. So I think I'm still gonna pick up Piranesi because parts of this appeal to me, and if it's in like a shorter form, then I may really enjoy it. But yeah, that was my main issue with this. It was so long, and I understand why it was so long, because she did what Tolkien does. I've only read one Tolkien book, and it was The Hobbit. It was in middle school, so like I probably wasn't even old enough to appreciate it, but it was so long-winded and so descriptive. I was like, shut up, Tolkien. J.R.R., whatever your real name is, shut up. He's so descriptive, and like everything ends up coming, like, circling back, and like every detail from everything that happened like plays a part in the overall climax, the overall outcome of the story. So you have to read like every word of the book, and I'm like, which to me is frustrating. Obviously I read every word of the book, but when the descriptions are so long, it gets to be a pain. But this is like that. I think if you're a fan of like the Lord of the Ring books, I haven't read the books, but I've read The Hobbit, and it's in that world. I assume they're similar. Then I think you would like this. And that's because of the writing style and because of the way that the story connects and comes together at the end. Because I feel like you could, those people who really like to analyze, you know, little small things that happen and see how they play into the story later, they would like this, because, you know, everything in a sense is important to the ending. Which leads me to what I did like about this book, which was the ending. Great ending. I really I liked that. Obviously, everything pretty much climaxed at the very end. There wasn't really a resolution period as much, but I did love how everything, ended up working out. I like how it was kind of open-ended. I mean, not completely, but there's still this air of things that are yet to come. So I did really enjoy that. I like seeing everything come together. That is something that appeals to me, but I didn't want to have such a long journey to get there. So those are really my thoughts. I do find her writing to be good if it wasn't so dense. Like, I do really like the whimsical characters, the kind of contradictory, non-self-aware characters. They're funny. They're just kind of dumb, but it's fun to read about and seeing these contradictions between the characters. So I really appreciate those aspects. I think Susanna Collins, this is not the Hunger Games Mariah, Susanna Clarke, is a very talented author. It's just so long, so dense. I feel like yes, I did really enjoy the ending. I like how it wrapped up, but I wasn't really loving the journey. I don't know if I mentioned I did switch kind of back and forth between the audiobook and the physical book. I won't be keeping this. I'm glad that I can say I've read it, this behemoth of a book, but there's not really passages that I particularly love and would want to reread, and I'm certainly not going to reread the entire book, because that was a whole thing. So yeah, I finished this. I'm glad I can say that I read it. I'm sorry I didn't update when I said I was going to, since when am I reliable? But I think that's going to be all for this vlog. Pretty much this was everything I read in, I think, November. I said I wasn't gonna say when the dates were when I was filming these, but you can see my Christmas tree right here. So it's December. I don't just have a Christmas tree up in July, so yeah. Just ignore that this isn't probably going to go up anywhere near the time of year that it was filmed. But yeah, I think I'm going to just close this out. This was a full month of reading. One was a freaking journey. The others were actually pretty fun. I'm keeping all of those. But yeah, I'm gonna start a new vlog next because I have some fun Christmassy reading plans. That's it. I don't feel like I have much of anything else to say. I'm glad I'm finally done with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It was, like I said, a journey, but we made it. But yeah, I'm glad I finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog, and I will see you in my next one.